this is a spoiler vlog. Just a fair warning, before we jump into everything, I will be talking about the whole aspect of these. So if you do not want spoilers on any of this, do not continue through this. Spoiler alert now. This is where all the good stuff happens. Thank you for watching. Hello, y'all. Welcome back. We're gonna do a vlog. I know it's weird. I don't do vlogs. I do TBRs and wrap-ups, and that's pretty much it. But I had an idea, because I started listening to the Waywards Children Series by Seanan Mcguire. And I kind of wanted to do a little vlog for you guys. So here's my intro, and let's dive into book 1 because I have already finished. Every Heart a Doorway. I was not expecting it to be as dark as it was. I've definitely heard people talk about this. Definitely Kayla. I've read a lot of those books. And Rise from Rise Reading Channel, and I've heard a few other people talk about it as well, and I didn't think it was going to be as dark as it was. I actually really enjoyed book 1. Let's dive into it. So Eleanor West, Home for Wayward Children. We are with Nancy. Yeah, Nancy. She gets sent to this home, Eleanor West's home, by her parents because they didn't feel like she was herself after tumbling through this door into death. I believe it was like a death world, blah blah blah. So she goes to this home and she meets other people that have tumbled through doors as well. Some are nonsense, some are logic, and those are your directions, is nonsense and logic. There's 2 other directions that I can't remember off the top of my head. But people start dying. And they think that Nancy is the one that is doing it because she was literally in hell. But it's Nancy's trying to figure out who it is because she's like, well, it's not me. Like, I don't know. She's already made friends with all these people. We have Jack and Jill. I can't remember what her roommate's name was. Soma? I want to say something kind of like that. I can't remember what her roommate's name is, but her roommate is the first one that ends up dead. And they're trying to figure it out. There's 2 other people. One was a teacher and one was another student that passed away. But people are taking the parts of them that mean something. So when you tumble through these doors, they bring you into places that you are attracted to or attract you to it, type of situation. So it's your worlds depend on where they technically, like, where you lead yourself, pretty much. Attraction type of situation. There are doors all over. They open when you're ready, etc., etc. So there are children that tumble through these doors and don't come back. They do come back, and then they end up in homes like this. And we meet a few different people throughout this. Our main characters in this one are Eleanor herself, Nancy, I think it's Soma or Sona or something like that, and Jack and Jill, Christopher, and there's a few others I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a few days since I've actually listened to the book, but they are trying to figure out all of everything, and it was interesting going through this, and we figure out it's Jill. Spoilers, I will put this in the beginning, film a clip, and be like, hey, spoiler vlog, just a fair warning. But Jill's the one that ends up doing it, and she only does it because she wants to go home to the world that their door opened up to, and Jack ends up killing her sister because it's the only way that she could think of to stop it. And when she does, her door opens. So Jack and Jill go home. Later, we get to they're going home for holiday break. And I think it was Christopher who came down, or the other kid. I can't remember what the other kid's name was off the top of my head. Ethan, something like that. Comes down with her suitcase. And was like, I figured you'd want this to take it home with you so your parents don't think that we're encouraging your dark behaviors. And she's like, oh, thank you, and opens the note that her roommate left in her bag for her before she gave it to what's his name in exchange for clothes that Nancy would actually wear. She reads it, and then her door opens as well. So Nancy gets to go back to where she wanted to be. It was really good. I actually really enjoyed it. It was definitely a weird but fun listen, and I'm kind of excited to continue these series and talk to you guys about my thoughts and everything on these. So book 2, I did start. Book 2 is Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and this one is about Jack and Jill, and when so it starts off with their childhood and how their parents wanted to have a boy and a girl, and Dad was pretty excited because 2 at once he can be done and over with, and he doesn't have to deal with his wife being pregnant ever again and all that, and he's like grossed out by it, which is kind of weird, but kind of like okay, whatever. But he gets 2 girls. They name them Jillian and Jacqueline, and Jacqueline ended up being the little prissy princess type of situation where she's prim and proper and can't get dirty, blah, blah, blah. That's how her mom wanted her, but Jill ended up being the boy. The very, very tomboy, running around, getting dirty, etc., etc., and they were fine with that. Like, 2 separate girls. One's boyish, one's girlish. It's fine. They decided to play a game one day when they were 12, and they find this trunk up in the attic, and they opened it and they found stairs. So they kept walking down and down and down and down and down and down and down. They get to the bottom, there's a door, and it says, be sure. And they're like, okay, sure. And Jill's like, I want to go back, and Jack's like, I don't want to walk back up those stairs, I'm tired, like, that was a long journey. So they go through the store, and it's in a field, and they go up to the store, knock on this castle, and they ended up being taken in by this guy. And he's like, you're stuck now, sorry. And then to the point that I'm at, there's the doctor, and there's the vampire. And they are making their decisions on who goes what. Jill wants to stay at the castle with this vampire dude, and Jack's like, I'm gonna go with the doctor. Screw you. So then they kind of get into a fight, and they're not talking at the moment. And Jack leaves with this doctor guy. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm actually kind of enjoying this one. I'm just kind of, I don't know, I kind of like it. It's very, very dark in some situations, and I think that's the aspect that I really like about these. I will definitely keep you informed. I should have another update for you tomorrow, possibly finish. And that's all I got, so I will be back with more to talk about. Hey y'all, vlog clip. So I finished the other half of book 2, Down Among the Sticks and Bones. This one was, so book 2 is about, Jack and Jill, and they are in their world, the moors, and we get to see, as I said in the first half of this, like, everything that goes on. In the second half of the book, we meet, we're with Jack, and they resurrect this girl named Alexis, and they kind of fall in love with each other, and then they, little bit down the way, after everything kind of starts going on, we end up seeing Jill again, who is spoiled by the master, and she's the pretty princess, spoiled princess, everything, and when her 18th birthday arrives, she will be turned into a vampire by the master and become the master's child, his daughter, whatever. And their date is coming around. It's been a few years since they tumbled down. She's about 17 and a half at this point, but they don't know completely exactly, because time is different in the worlds than it is in the real world. And when she is talking to, her name is Mary, she's kind of the governess of the place, kind of running everything, helping Jill get dressed, like all that. Tells Jill that she needs to be ruthless, that he needs her to be ruthless, and blah blah blah. So she sees, after running into Jack and noticing that, oh, my sister's in love with this person, I don't like that. She sees Alexis and kills her, because she doesn't like that her sister is in love with somebody else, or that her sister has somebody else, even though they haven't really talked in the years that they have even been in this world. So after that, Jill goes back to the castle, and she's kicked out by the master, and blah blah blah, everything happens, and then a mob forms, and Jill is pretty much forced out of this world, and when Jack finds her, she takes her back to her, to the doc's place, and he's like, you gotta get out of here, you can't be here, you need to leave for a full year, and you cannot bring your sister back the way that she is. And you cannot open the door unless you have blood on your hands. So they leave through this door back to the real world, and that's where they end up at. They end up back at home, walking back up the stairs that they originally went down, and they come tumbling back out into the attic, go back in, down into the kitchen to find their parents with a little boy. And then that kind of stops. I kind of thought it was a little, I did really like this one a lot. I like the darkness and everything of it. And when in the first book, when Jack kills Jill and goes through the door, that's, like, everything kind of clicked in book 2. Oh, she can't go back the way she is, so she killed Jill. And she kind of mentioned that in the first book. But it becomes, like, more, like, oh, in the second book, once it explains it at the end. And the blood on your hands, to get back through the door, Jack needed to kill Jill. So that's where we left off with book 2, which was Down Among the Sticks and Bones. And I will be putting all of the covers up here for y'all, so you can see them, because I don't own them physically. So book 3, these ones are really short, and since I listen to stuff on 2.5 times speed, these are only about an hour and a half, 2-hour audiobooks, so I was actually able to get through like 4 of them yesterday when I was working. So book 3, which is Beneath the Sugar Sky, we are back at Eleanor's. So what I've kind of noticed is we're at Eleanor's, we're in the worlds, at Eleanor's, in the worlds, at Eleanor's, but when we're at Eleanor's, we also travel. So it's kind of like we're listening to their story, and then we're back into the real time, and then we get another person's story, and then we're back in real time of what is physically going on, and like how everything connects, which is pretty cool. So book 3, Beneath the Sugar Sky, we are back at Eleanor's, and we meet Cora, who is a mermaid. She's got blue and green hair, like natural blue and green, and Eleanor does say if she stays dry and stays on land for a certain amount of time, everything will go back to brown, and she won't be a mermaid anymore, and she won't be able to go back through her door. I think it was like 6 months or something like that, so she needs to keep swimming, needs to stay wet, pretty much. And then we're back with Cade, who is the school's tailor. He is the nephew of Eleanor. And he was the Goblin Prince, I believe, in the fairy world. In Prism is where he was ended up, and then we also are back with Nadia, who is the drowned girl. And Christopher, the bone dancer, we met him in the first book as well, who can make bones dance with his bone flute, and he was, I can't remember what his world was. Mariposa? Another one of the undead worlds. Sumi, this one is about Sumi. So we first come off with Cora and Nadia are going to swim in this pond or lake or whatever that's on the property, and from the heavens falls this naked girl who is screaming at people, or screaming at these girls wanting Sumi. And of course, Cora never met Sumi because she came after Sumi's death in the first book. So she's like, I don't know. And Nadia's like, go get help. Like, go get somebody. She looked like Sumi, but it ended up being Sumi's daughter, who is looking for her mom because she is starting to disappear because she's non-existent at this point because Sumi is dead. So Sumi's daughter is coming back from the confection world to try to figure out what happened to her mom and try to get her mom back so she can be born. So we follow Rinny, Christopher, Nadia, Cade, Cora, and Sumi's skeleton because, of course, Christopher resurrects and gets her skeleton, so they could try to resurrect Sumi. And they travel to the world of the undead to go visit Nancy to try to find her soul, which they end up doing. So, and then they go into the confection world to try to find her, I can't remember what it is, but she needs something else, to be able to live. So they're trying to find that, and they end up running into the Queen of Confection, or the Queen of Cakes, who ended up being kind of mean. She takes Christopher's bone flute, takes Sumi's skeleton, locks her up, blah, 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 but they were able to beat the Queen of Cakes. And since Sumi is dead, the Queen of Cakes is still alive from Sumi's previous story where she defeated the Queen. So, and then everything kind of goes along, and then we meet Layla, who is a baker from Brooklyn, who ended up in this story, and she likes to bake and everything, and she helps bake a new Sumi by putting frosting intestines and fondant hair and all sorts of things on her, and helps rebuild Sumi. Sumi is brought back to life, and they all return back to Eleanor's, and everything is kind of okay. We did leave, when we're in the world of the undead, the Lord of the Dead was like, I want one of you to stay as barter. So we left Nadia in the world of the undead with Nancy, who leads her to this lake where she can be another drowned girl. So she is still in the world of the undead, in a lake. And that's where that book left us off at. And after book 3, I ended up listening to In an Absent Dream, which is book 4. And in this book, we are following Catherine Lundy, and we do meet Catherine in the first book. So she comes into this world. Well, we first see her with her parents. She has an older brother, and she has one baby sister, who she helps take care of, per her mother. She's a book nerd. She really loves to read books. She doesn't have any friends in this world at all, because everybody thinks she's weird and all of that. So Catherine ends up finding this door in an oak tree, and she's walking through it into this, kind of like forest area, and she, stumbles, as she's going through this hallway, she sees rules. And I forgot to write down all of them, and I can't find the ebook. So one of the rules is ask for nothing. Don't give anyone your name. Avoid asking questions. There's a 4th rule that I can't remember off the top of my head. And then remember the curfew. And this curfew one comes towards the end of the book. It kind of like becomes like oh, okay. And then fair value. Everything in the Goblin Market is for fair value. So in part of the book, the archivist, I think is what her name was, goes, would it be fair if I had 100 ribbons and you had 1 ribbon, and all we wanted were just basic bread and cheese to live off of? Would it be fair to get 1 ribbon from both of us? And Catherine's like, no, that wouldn't be fair value at all, because you have more ribbons than I. So everything is for fair value in this. So I come up and I'm like, hey, I have this much. And they're like, okay, well, this would be fair value, per them. Given, like, what you're giving them to what they're giving you, it needs to be a fair value. And when you are in debt, you start to become a bird. You grow feathers, talons, etc. The longer you are in debt, or the more that you go in debt, you turn into a full bird, and you have to try to become human again by helping people, for fair value, to become human again. So going into the Goblin Market, she's there for a little bit. She meets Moon. They trade for fair value for not mooncakes, pies, like meat pies and everything with this one vendor. She works fair value with the archivist to stay at the archivist's place. And then she ends up back at home. She was 8 when she first went, and then she stumbled back and stayed at home until she was 10, where we learn that her dad had ended up at the Goblin Market as well when he was a boy. So when she stumbled back, he knew exactly where she had gone by the time she had come home. 2 years later, she finds another door back to the Goblin Market, and of course she's like, I'm going, bye. She gets back, and she's 10 this time around. So when Lundy gets back into the world again for the second time, she finds out that her friend Moon is in debt because she's starting to grow feathers along her hair and she's got talons for fingers. So she bargains with her friend for the second time to try to help her become human once again. And they figure it out, and then Lundy ends up back into the human world once again, where her dad's like, nope, I've had enough of this, you're not going back, and sends her to a all-girls private boarding school type of situation where she is never alone, learning that the doors don't show up if you are with people, it only shows up when she's alone. So he's like, gotcha. So she finds a way to, again, find a door. She runs away, travels farther and farther until she finds a door in the woods behind the school. She was 12 at this time. She makes it back in only to find that her friend Moon had turned into a full bird and completely was in debt. So she goes and she bargains with the archivist, who ends up being like the debt person that you have to bargain with to become human again. And she makes this deal, and in 1 year, if she still loves Lundy as she is, then she turns into a bird. So after she pays Moon's debt, everything's fine for another year. And then Lundy is turned into a bird after that. And after another year, she's brought back. She's turned back human to find out that she's 15. So she... And then she ends up being, I think she was sent back to the human world to say her goodbyes, etc., etc., where her dad bargains with her this time and asks her for fair value to stay for a year. She started bonding with her little sister, who was around 9 at the time, so she wants her to stay, watch her grow up, watch her graduate high school, etc., etc., Lundy feels bad, but wants to be in the Goblin Market, so she goes back, bargains once again, and this is where the curfew part comes in. So once you turn 18, if you do not pledge yourself to the Goblin Market, you go back to the real world and you can't come back, because once you're 18, all the doors close. And so she goes back, she tries to bargain, and before she hears the consequences of what it's going to be to take this potion to keep her young, she takes it. And after she takes this potion, the archivist goes, you broke a rule, blah blah blah, you're banished, you can't come back to the Goblin Market, there's no getting past this rule, etc., etc. And Lundy's like, wait, I took this potion to be able to come back later, and you're saying I can't ever come back? And she's like, yeah, you didn't listen to the consequences, or you didn't even bother to even figure it out. And so Lundy's now heartbroken, and when she comes back, we are now back at Eleanor's, where she first goes to Eleanor's, and we learn that Catherine is now aging backwards. And she ended up losing the Goblin Market, her sister, etc., etc., because she's aging backwards. And what are you going to tell your little sister when you're younger than her? At I don't know. This one wasn't my favorite. It was good. I did like it, but I definitely was not my favorite one out of the whole series. And then for book 5, which is Come Tumbling Down, this one we are following Christopher. We are back at Eleanor's again, and Cora had come down into the basement because apparently everybody was hearing these loud noises down there and trying to figure out what the hell is going on. So she goes down and Christopher's like, I don't know, it's lightning, like, what, I don't know what's going on, and it's not for me. And Cora goes, well, it's scaring everybody upstairs. And then all of a sudden a door appears. And Christopher goes, that's not mine, my world doesn't have lightning. And Cora's like, well, maybe I should go find somebody. And he's like, no, 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 no. And then the doorknob starts turning. And in walk Alexis and Jack. Or what appears to be Jill. Because Jack is now in Jill's body. So once they got back into their world at the moors, they're resurrecting Jill, and the master came back and found out that she was dead, and all he wanted back was his daughter. And he knew that Jack had not been resurrected, and she could still be turned into a vampire, so he swapped them bodies. And this is all Jill ever wanted, was to become a vampire by the time she turned 18. So she's like, okay, I'll do it. And so we are at Eleanor's. Jack and Alexis are there, and she wants to go back and be swapped again. So she enables the help of a couple different ones. It's Cade, Cora, and Christopher. I think those are the only ones that went into the world with them to try to get the switch happen and to kill Jill at this point. So we get back into the moors, and we go on this journey throughout. Alexis is alive again. She was resurrected for the second time. We get to a point where Cora runs off to find water in the moors, and she becomes this like monster type thing, who tells them something that they needed to know, etc., etc., and then she's back as a normal person. And then they're all reunited again to go do this thing. They meet this guy Gideon, who Jack had already known, and her master, the doctor, ended up being murdered by Jill and the master, the vampire master. So they make this journey all the way, and they ended up killing Jill and swapping bodies before it happened, and that's it. Not really a lot of significance in this one. This one I think is probably my second least favorite so far. I really enjoyed book 1. If I had to rate all of these, it'd be book 1 at the top, book 2, book 3, book 4, and then book 5. And just going down. And enjoyment levels, it's definitely, I enjoyed the first book the most, and I'm enjoying the 5th book the least. So I'm kind of hoping books 6 and 7 and 8 are going to be a little bit better for me. But definitely book 1 and book 2 are my favorites so far of the whole series. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys so far. I will update you when I am done with book 7, books 6, 7, and 8. See you guys soon. Hello. Welcome back. So I finished across the green grass fields today, where the drowned girls go, and lost in the moment and found. I listened to all of these at work. I did get them from the library, but I didn't actually read them physically. I don't know why I picked them up from the library. Let's talk about Across the Green Grass Fields. This one is about Reagan. Reagan loves and is loved through, though her school friend situation has become complicated of late. When she suddenly finds herself thrust through a doorway that asks her to be sure before swallowing her whole, Reagan must learn to live in a world filled with centaurs, kelpies, and other magical equines. A world that expects its human visitors to step up and be heroes. After embracing her time with the herd, Reagan discovers that not all forms of heroism are equal and not all quests are as they seem. So we start off, Reagan is 8, I believe, and she has this one best friend, and her name's Laurel, who is the classic mean girl. And they had another friend called Heather, but they shunned Heather because she was weird, and girls don't play with snakes type of situation. We kind of go down the line a little bit, and I think they're only 10. And Reagan kind of learns a little something about herself. Her parents are kind of iffy about telling her, but they want to be honest with her when they tell her. They just don't want it to ruin her childhood, etc., etc., and they don't want her to think differently of herself and all of that. And I think the way that Seanan wrote it was really, really, really done well. Even the friend, Laurel, I can't remember what her name is. Laurel. She's just a classic mean girl, and she, as soon as Reagan told her secret, literally the next day, Laurel's like, I don't want to be around you. I don't like you anymore. Bye. Okay, so Laurel runs away from school. She doesn't mean to accidentally, run away, but she gets to this creek, and she stumbles upon this door, and above it says, be sure. So Reagan goes to the door where she meets centaurs. She's part of a centaur family. There's unicorns, kelpies, and there's a queen. The queen wants the human, Reagan, to, go to her. So the queen, ends up causing famine and warfare and all sorts of things because whoever doesn't give Reagan up, the queen causes havoc in that area, burns farms, etc., etc. And the time comes where Reagan has to be the hero, but her centaur friend doesn't want her to because that means she's going to disappear. So we go through the story, and the ending was kind of abrupt. It literally, she saves the equine world. So she beats the queen, and then she goes to the door to